Welcome back to the Farm Cook Kitchen. Today we have a treat, something special. In this case, it's literally a treat. It is pecans roasted in butter, seasoned with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar. So here we have the implements for today. We've got 2 pounds of pecans that are shelled. We've got some melted butter. It's about a tablespoon and a half. About a tablespoon of cinnamon and another tablespoon or so of allulose, which is a blood sugar impacting sweetener that I tend to use when trying to add a little bit of a sweetness to something. And what I'm going to be doing is roasting these guys in the oven at about 350 for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. You have to check your own oven. But once they come out, we're going to dust them in the cinnamon and sugar mixture, or I should say sugar mixture, and that'll be the dish. And it's something that I use as a supplement, or not even a supplement, something to add into, breakfast, or if I need a little bit of a treat. This provides some fat, some calories, and no carbs, so it works with the way that I eat. So here's the process. Ready? Melted butter, pecans, get everything in there, stir like mad. Just trying to make sure that the butter covers all of the individual nuts and that everybody gets a little bit of love, a little bit of flavor. And by the way, I'm using regular salted butter. I think the salt provides a little bit of contrast to the sweet from the allulose, and it makes something really, really yummy. Now, this method works for whatever kind of seasoning you want to do if you're doing roasted nuts. So you could, this is a sweeter implementation, but you could go savory as well. It's totally up to you. So now what we're gonna do, take these guys, throw them onto a sheet pan, make sure everything is evenly distributed. And that's my oven telling me, hey, I'm up to temperature. And just throw them in. And like I said, 15 to 20 minutes. Check them to make sure that they don't burn. And maybe halfway through, flip them around. Make sure both sides are getting direct contact with the pan, and see how they go. So here we go. These guys are going into the oven at 350, and they'll stay there for another 10, 15 minutes. So when does the seasoning start? Well, it already has started with the butter, which has a little bit of salt in it. But once the roasted nuts come out of the oven, we'll let them cool off for a little bit, and then we'll add the cinnamon and sugar mix to make sure everything's coated, but not when it's super hot, which may end up burning the cinnamon and the sugar. So we'll have to wait another 10 or 15 minutes. All right, we're now about 10 or 15 minutes in. Let's take a look and see how these guys are doing. Ooh, they're getting there. They're nice and brown. But they're not quite the color I'm looking for. So what I'm gonna do is bring them out, spin them around a bit, and then put them back. Can you see? Some of these guys are a little bit more brown than others. What we want is that sort of uniform color. So spin these around, drop it back in, check them again. Right now we're a couple minutes later. Let's see what these guys look like. Oh yes, this is smelling delicious as well. Got a little bit more color. Want to be really careful at this stage because it's so easy to burn these guys. And what I'm going to do is spin them on the tray just one more time, and then let them rest for about 5 minutes or so. And then we're going to add the cinnamon and sugar. Yum. All right, it's been a couple of minutes. We've got the roasted nuts on the pan. It's time to go on to the next step. I'm using the same bowl. It's got a little bit of the butter in it, but that's it. Why clean a pan that you're gonna dirty again anyway? Drop these guys in. And try and just get the big pieces and leave the dust and the schmutz behind. Now what? Let's drop in the cinnamon. And by the way, you can see that the nuts, with the amount of pecans that are in here, they're not wet. There's only a couple, tablespoon and a half of melted butter for 2 pounds of pecans. So it's not like these things are saturated and ooey and gooey. All we're doing is spinning these guys and trying to get them relatively evenly coated with the cinnamon, and now the allulose. Again, about a tablespoon and a half. So the combination of the melted butter and the roasted nut and cinnamon and a little bit of sweet smell from the allulose is just wonderful. You can absolutely tell that there's roasted pecans that are happening in this house. All we're doing is trying to make sure everybody's coated. Everybody knows. Not easy to do one-handed, but what can you do? These guys are still pretty warm. They're not, they haven't cooled totally. And I wanted to have some heat so that the seasonings would stick reasonably well. You can see in each one, there's a little bit, oops, I don't know if that's focusing or not. There's a little bit of seasoning that's adhered to the individual pecan. Gotta test them. That's pretty tasty. Yep, that's pretty tasty. So these are cinnamon roasted pecans with a little bit of allulose. Great to throw into, I don't know, maybe you're somebody that enjoys yogurt for breakfast. Throw a couple of those guys in for some crunch, some fat. Maybe you're looking for a low carb snack to enjoy on occasion. These guys fit the bill, provide a lot of satiety. They're just delicious. Give them a try. By the way, one final note, those guys are going to be going into the fridge once they cool off completely. In the fridge, they'll last a couple of weeks. They'll be delicious for a couple of weeks if they're stored in the fridge. They don't last as long if you leave them out on the counter, but at least that's been my experience. So anyway, enjoy.